now. So okay, so I mean, the reason that we're here and the reason that so many of you have given your time this afternoon is because we know that the current cost of living crisis means that now more than ever, it's vital that people with money worries are linked into support at the earliest opportunity. And the reason that I've been really supportive and keen to help around the Worrying About Money leaflet is that it's such a simple resource for people facing financial crisis themselves and for those supporting them to quickly see which local agencies are best placed to help. And all the organisations that you see there, all those logos along the bottom, show what a collaborative approach this is. And the idea is, and Abby will talk us through the leaflet in a minute, that there's a really simple step-by-step guide to help people so they can see what their options are and see who is best placed to help. So the aim of this training is to equip you to use it well. We know that you represent a range of different organisations, and for you to have confidence in using it and really just to promote it. We want to make sure that as many people as possible in North Somerset are aware of the support that's available. So as a bit of a starting point, we've got an online interaction activity that we're going to use called Menti, and Janet's going to pop the link in the chat for me. Basically, what I would like you to do is either click on the link in the chat, or if you've got a smartphone handy, you could go to menti.com and pop in the code that's on your screen there. And what will happen is that you'll just see those 3 questions either in a separate window or on your phone. And this is just a starting point, a quick check-in really, just to see what you might or might not already know. So you're going to just be asked to put on a scale of 1 to 5 how much you understand what a cash-first approach to food insecurity is, how much you know what money advice and support options are available, and how confident you feel to ask people about money worries and guide them to support. And I know for some that maybe that added layer of tech might be a step too far. Don't worry too much about it. You can always just have a think about those questions and maybe jot something down on a piece of paper. But for those of you who are able to, it will be really helpful for you to just pop those answers down. And Janet, I think, is keeping an eye on that. So you're able to let me know. Are they coming in? Yeah. Okay. Brilliant. Well, you still can do that. You can still answer it as I move on. But again, I'm aware of time, so I'm going to move us forward into our presentation. And I'm here really just to give a bit of an overview of what Cash First is and how we mean Cash First when we talk about these leaflets. I help food banks support them operationally to do what they need to do, distributing emergency food for as long as possible, as well as possible, but also increasingly supporting food banks and others to think strategically about working towards a future where food banks and other charitable food aid organisations aren't needed, because we know that charitable food aid is a sticking plaster and not a solution to the poverty that might drive someone to needing support. So the co-production of these leaflets is rooted in what we call a cash-first approach. And a cash-first approach aims to, wherever possible, address the poverty behind the need for someone needing to use a food bank by looking at income-based solutions, which ultimately enable choice and dignity for people that might be facing money worries or financial crisis. And I always look to these definitions of poverty again to help frame that. The Joseph Rowntree Foundation do some amazing work, and they talk about poverty meaning not being able to heat your home, pay your rent, or buy the essentials for your children, and talk about waking up every day facing insecurity or uncertainty and impossible decisions about money. And we know that this constant stress can really overwhelm people, affect them emotionally, and deprive them of the chance to play a full part in society. And I find this cartoon particularly helpful because it talks about all the pressures that people might be facing, and increasingly more and more of us are facing these issues of low paid, insecure work, housing costs, the benefit freeze, and particularly now the rising cost of living, all combining to squeeze people and lock people into poverty. And at times, especially now, this seems like a huge unsolvable problem. But looking at it this way has helped me, because we think about systems and economies being designed and the potential for them to be redesigned to work for everyone, which again is behind this cash first approach, inspiring us to think about what part we can play in redesigning systems that work for people, or working out what's within our spheres of influence to change and to help loosen the grip of poverty and its effect on people. And again, this leaflet and being part of this process is a part of that change. And for some people, having access to the leaflet will help loosen some of those pressures that they're facing. Very briefly, I always pop this in at any opportunity. I avoid actually talking about food poverty. I talk about food banks a lot, but I do avoid trying to kind of compartmentalize it, because the danger is that the solution is then perhaps seen as giving out food or giving out fuel vouchers, when actually those things in themselves wouldn't address some of the underlying issues that leave people without money. So again, this is linked into advocating for cash first solutions. So thinking about things that put cash into people's pockets and bank accounts wherever possible. And very briefly, because I know that we want to give a lot of time to hear from our advice partners in the room here, we know at the Trussell Trust that we have seen an increasing need for people relying on our food banks over the last 5 years. This April, our stats showed that food banks in our network had distributed 2.1 million food parcels. And we know that this isn't representative of the whole scale of need, because there's many other charitable organisations, perhaps some represented here, that are also in this picture, or not in this picture, in the wider picture of supporting people to cover the basics. So again, we're always really keen to look at those drivers. We know that there's problems with the benefit system. We know that there's a lot of people experiencing challenging life experiences or ill health. And then again, a lack of informal or formal support, again, is one of the key drivers that causes people to need emergency food aid. And again, that's where this leaflet fits in doing what we can to really strengthen that formal and informal support in local communities to ensure people get linked into support at the earliest opportunity. And so very briefly, before I hand on, alongside the stats picture, we know it's important not to lose sight of the individual amongst those statistics, all the people that are facing money worries and impossible decisions. So that's why I really value your time this afternoon. And again, the opportunity to partner with us as we use the Worrying About Money leaflet as a way to help. So what can we do? I'm going to hand over to Abby to do a bit of a talk through of the leaflet.
Thanks, Emma. So, as Emma said, I should probably introduce myself first. My name is Abby. I am a project officer at the Independent Food Aid Network, and the ethos of our charity is to end the need for charitable food aid. And one of the ways that we aim to help with this is by producing these cash first referral leaflets. And as Emma said, advice is fundamental to a cash first approach. And this leaflet aims to connect people to local advice and support to help people access existing financial entitlements and maximise their income. And this is how we can reduce the need for charitable food aid. I'm just going to admit someone in the waiting room. The step-by-step guide is based on the learning from Scotland's A Menu for Change project, and is designed both for people facing money worries or people who are in financial crisis, and as well as frontline support workers and volunteers. Leaflets like this have been co-produced in 80 different local authority areas so far, and as Emma can probably attest to, if she helps us out a lot, that number is growing all the time. And this is the front page of the leaflet that we co-produced in North Somerset with a variety of local stakeholders, including North Somerset Council. So as you can see, the step one is asking what the problem is. And that could be that someone suddenly has no money, they're waiting on a benefit payment decision, their money doesn't quite stretch far enough, or they have debt, and here they have the explanations of these issues as well as the corresponding numbers in the next step that are things that can help them. Could I have the next slide, please? Yeah, so those numbers correspond to the step 2 options. That is something, like I say, that have been researched a lot with the Scotland Menu for Change project. And the step 2 option 1 is any council support schemes that exists. And here we have the link to North Somerset housing benefit, council tax reduction, or discretionary housing payment that might be suitable for someone. Step 2, option 2, are ways to maximise your income, and that can be advising people for benefit checks, finding ways to manage gas and electricity bills, although that's difficult at the minute. Check that they're not missing out on any grants that they may be eligible for. Step 2, option 3 is debt advice, which may be applicable to some people. And there are a lot of advisors on the leaflet that are able to help with debt. Step 2, option 4 is a benefit advance. And that can be the advance on universal credit that you can get if you make a new claim. Step 5 is a hardship payment, which you can receive if you're on universal credit and you've been sanctioned. And step 2, option 6 is challenge a decision. If you think that benefits have stopped, you've been sanctioned, or the benefits have been refused unfairly. And all of these options can help people who are struggling for money. And then that brings us on to step 3, which is on the next slide, please. And step 3, which you can see on the left, are all the local agencies that help with all of the step 2 options. And there may be some of you in the audience. We've got Citizens Advice, Bristol Law Centre, Alliance Housing. These are all of the local agencies in North Somerset that can directly help with the step 2 options, and they can give advice and support for people when they're going through the process of accessing the step 2 options. As you can see on the left, there is also other support, and this is for other forms of local and national agencies that are linked to money worries and financial crisis, and they include advice on homelessness, advice for people suffering from domestic violence, and mental health charities. And like I said, they're a mixture of national and local agencies. So that there is the kind of middle page of the leaflet. And then if we could go to the next slide, please. And this is the back of the leaflet, where, as you can see, there are a couple of national organisations that can help, and also a section that is most applicable for migrants with no recourse to public funds, as well as refugees and asylum seekers. We collaborate with local stakeholders in all of our areas to make sure the leaflet is as accessible as possible, which you'll be able to see on the next slide. So as well as the leaflet PDF, which we can print and hand out to the stakeholders, we've also got an interactive version, which you can see on the right-hand side. And that is for someone to click on the problem that's most applicable to them. And then that takes them through the options and suggests the agencies that are most applicable to them. And this can be more suitable for someone who are accessing our services online. We can also produce a poster version, which is something that has been most suitable for GP surgeries, schools, that sort of thing. We've also produced a range of translated versions that are most suitable for the local area. There isn't a translated version for North Somerset yet, but this is something that can be discussed if everyone here thinks this is most suitable. And we've also got easy read versions as well, because as I said, we aim to make the leaflets as accessible as possible. And we usually work with numerous local stakeholders in partnership when putting these leaflets together to make sure the information is accurate and that the leaflet is disseminated as widely as possible. The leaflet is a tool for people facing money worries or those in financial crisis, but ideally we want to reach people before they reach crisis, and that crisis all too often results in needing to use food banks. So we want to avoid this as much as possible, and this leaflet can help with that. In terms of where the leaflets get most widely disseminated and where they work best, in many areas, the leaflets have got to schools, GP surgeries, community link workers, health visitors, libraries, a fire and rescue service. All of this is where the leaflet can be accessed best. I think in Tower Hamlets, they were being put in with people's council tax bills, just any of the kind of ways that we can get this information out to people, because it works best when as many people can access it as possible. That means it's vital that we engage with referral agents to local food aid organisations for this work to be impactful. The leaflet can help to enter default referral pathways, kind of what I was talking about earlier, and help people access support to maximise their income, ideally so they don't need to access food aid. It'd be great to hear from the attendees here for any ideas they might have about of how to get these leaflets into the community as much as possible. So that's something that we can certainly discuss at the end. But I think that's everything I have to say on the leaflet itself. If anyone has any questions about it, feel free to put them in the chat box, and I'll be online for this meeting to answer them. So thank you for listening to that. And thanks very much.
Thanks, Abby. That was a great overview of the leaflet, and I think you've got links as well that you can pop into the chat, which show like a PDF version.
Yes,
version.
Sorry, I should have said that. Yeah, I'll put a link to the PDF version and the interactive version and in the chat. Sorry, and I will also put a link to our Google ordering form in as well. If anyone wants to order leaflets, the North Somerset leaflets to their kind of agency. And I will put this in the roundup email that I'll send to everyone after the session as well, just so it doesn't get lost. So yeah, I'll put those in now.
Brilliant, thank you. So moving on then, we've mentioned some of the amazing local advice and support organisations that are available. We've got Gareth joining us. Gareth, so over to you. Would you like to give a bit of an overview about the work that you and your organisation do?
Yes, certainly. Thank you, Emma and Abby, for inviting us to be part of this project. It's something that will no doubt touch all of us in one way or another, but certainly many of the clients that we see. So just as an overview, Alliance Homes Group, we are the largest social landlord in North Somerset. We're not the only social landlord in North Somerset, but we were set up to take over the ownership and management of what used to be North Somerset's council stock a little over a decade ago. I think what makes us different and makes our offer a bit more unique to local residents of North Somerset is we provide a range of commission services on behalf of North Somerset Council for the whole community, not just for Alliance Homes tenants. And I'll give you a little bit of an overview through the next couple of slides, but I'm going to keep it kind of quite brief and high level because I know we're a bit pushed for time. But I kind of like the whole we are more than bricks and mortar thing. You know, we are more than a landlord. So first slide, please. So who can access our service? Literally anybody in North Somerset. The service is free. You do not need to be an Alliance Homes tenant. We have a really straightforward referral system. It's one side of A4. We just need your personal details or your client's personal details, their consent. We are a consent-driven service. So if there's any professionals on the call today that want to access our service, you need to get your client's consent. Some basic information about the kind of things that they're struggling with and the kind of help that they're looking for. Some information for our loan working purposes to make sure it's safe to visit that person, and that goes to a support email inbox at our head office in Portishead, but you can also call through, and the number will be on the end of the last slide from my part of this presentation. So roughly about 50-50 in terms of self-referrals and referrals from other agencies. Because we've been around so long and we are the largest commission support service providing housing related support, there isn't really many agencies that we don't interact with. But if you've never used us previously and you think that the information I give you this afternoon will be beneficial to your customers, by all means get in touch. So next slide, please. So bit of a busy slide, this one, but there's quite a lot going on with Alliance support. So we work around kind of 5 or 6 key areas. So that's housing advocacy, health and well-being, managing money, employment, education and training, and we also support people in the health system, and then that kind of sort of general advice and advocacy. But here's some bullet points that kind of list what we do. So we help our clients make informed choices about their housing options. We provide advocacy between landlords and tenants where perhaps the situation is breaking down. We can help people resettle into new accommodation. They might be their first time living independently, or they may be moving on from a home, or perhaps a care environment or supported housing, and they need some help to kind of gather all those bits and bobs and household items that you need to set up home. We do a little bit of stuff around helping people sustain and understand what it means to be a tenant and a neighbour. And as I said, you know, we are tenure free. So we work with people that live in their own homes, private renters, people in other housing association properties, as well as our own residents. Now, it could be that somebody is quite happy at home, but because of changes in their health, that they need that property to be adapted so it's suitable for their future use and future independence. So we'll work with other agencies around aid and adaptations. We also work closely with various social care disciplines. I mentioned earlier about health and well-being. So we help people access statutory health and social care services, but also look to see what the voluntary sector and community sector can offer people. And that could be around physical as well as mental well-being. It could be around families and relationships and children, that kind of thing. We do a lot of work around money. Now, there's 2 sides to that coin, if you'll forgive the pun. We help people navigate the challenges of the benefit system. I'm sure many of you have read in the press or have experience of the joy, which is universal credit. For some people that perhaps have never had to access the benefit system before, the thought can be quite daunting. And to be honest, it's not very easy for many people. Issues around, you know, digital access and digital literacy aside, the system is very difficult to navigate if you're a first-time user. So we'll help people claim the benefits that perhaps they're entitled to that may support their independence. I'll come back to the dealing with money, but we also we provide a service for adult and young carers in North Somerset. So that's people with unpaid care and responsibilities, maybe looking after a partner, a parent, a family member, a neighbour. Because we know that the impact on the health and well-being of people that are caring for other people is often a really challenging situation for the carer. And we also have a team that works in our local hospitals. So we support the local health and social care system and try and support safe and timely discharges and prevent unnecessary admissions. And then finally, through our social prescribing link workers, we help people access community services where perhaps social isolation is a factor that is affecting their health and well-being. And we've been doing that for a number of years in partnership with not only Citizens Advice, but with local GP practices. And then, as I mentioned, providing advice and guidance and helping people access education, training and employment opportunities. As many of you will be aware, COVID had quite a dramatic influence on the labour market and continues to do so. So for many people, we're juggling multiple kind of challenges. And as Emma said earlier with her slide demonstrating the various fuel poverty, food poverty, I think we're currently experiencing an unprecedented economic crisis that most people, certainly I think of my generation, will never have seen before. And I think we're expecting for services that are already busy, whether they be statutory or voluntary sector, we are going to see a huge increase in the work that we do. And I'm certainly expecting that helping people manage their money is going to be the most common presenting factor. So just to say a little bit about how we help our clients with dealing with money. So we start very basically. It could be working with a client or a household to look at their income and expenditure. What's coming in? Where's it going? Are there unnecessary costs that can be cut out? Are there ways to reduce some of those costs? It could be that somebody has done the emu and buried their head in the sand, and there's actually piles and piles of brown envelopes, you know, and creditors are chasing them from left, right, and centre that they just haven't felt on their own to be able to deal with. So we provide a little bit of space for people just to understand what their situation is, help them go through that post, prioritise. Some of you may be aware that there are things that are considered priority debts and some things that aren't. So for example, not paying your Sky bill will get you into much less trouble than not paying your council tax being a priority debt, and that can escalate very quickly. So we'll help people look at what's coming in, what's going out, where can we, you know, perhaps shave some of those unnecessaries off, you know, make sure people are on the right tariffs. I've been learning quite a bit recently about internet providers and the social tariffs that they have. They were recently wrapped over the knuckles for not publicising them enough. But if you're in receipt of certain benefits, you know, you can certainly make some cost cuttings. Some of these things obviously are within our sphere of influence. Utility costs at the moment are one of those things that aren't, but sometimes it's about behaviour change and maybe cutting some corners, you know, where you can. So part of that is looking at income maximisation. So we will do a benefits check with our clients, see if there's anything that they are entitled to that they haven't been claiming. Now, sometimes that can result in quite life-changing amounts of money. I'm not talking vast amounts of money, but additional income that is going to make that household's life much, much easier. For example, it's not uncommon for us to meet older clients that perhaps are living on a very small occupational pension, have never claimed pension credit. You may have seen that a lot in the news recently. Martin Lewis was talking about it, and he crashed the government phone lines a couple of weeks ago. But that's extra money that can take some of that burden of existence off people. And certainly with the cold winter coming, we're going to need that. So the difference between one of my workers being able to put an additional £60 maybe from attendance allowance on top of that pension credit into somebody's pocket, you're increasing the amount of cash that's available. So we'll also liaise with debtors and creditors. We'll provide some advocacy between our client and perhaps the people, the organisation that they owe money to. We'll see if we can freeze those debts, reduce the interest, reduce the chances of bailiff recovery. But where it gets to significant levels of debt, and you start talking about insolvency and debt relief orders, then at that point we do hand over to specialist partners like Citizens Advice and some of the national debt management agencies. So it's quite involved, what we do. It's not a subject that people often like talking about, but it is something that none of us can escape. I think COVID certainly pushed many of us to online banking and contactless payments. But I think the feeling is in this country that we like cash. We find it easier to budget. We like to have it in our hands. And I think for people that are juggling multiple priorities, being able to physically see and budget and manage that money is actually a really useful skill. So whilst we will always try and deal with the underlying problems, we firmly support this cash first approach. So that's me. My contact details are on the next slide. If anybody has any questions, please pop them in the chat. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thanks, Gareth. That was a really good overview and really helpful to hear your thoughts around that. Okay, so we have Tori joining us from Citizens Advice. Tori, over to you.
Hi Emma, thank you. I think we might have a first slide coming up if that's all right. Brilliant. So my name's Tori Crandon. I head up the money advice team here at Citizens Advice North Somerset. We cover all residents of North Somerset. Our main administrative office is in Oxford Street in Weston, opposite the town hall. It's a fairly new office for us. We're also going to be reopening at the Sovereign Centre. I'm sure many of you will be pleased to hear over the next couple of months. So that will be back to our drop-in service that we used to have pre-COVID. In terms of our Oxford Street office, we are seeing clients there on a face-to-face basis, but that is by appointment only. We're not offering a drop-in service at that location at the moment. We are spread out across all of North Somerset. We have hubs all over the county. We're in Portishead, Nailsea, Hill. I can see some of my Pill colleagues here. We're at Bigwell. We also have outreaches at the food bank, in North Street and on the Bournemouth as well. So that's where we can see clients. Citizens Advice North Somerset is really growing. We've got about 40 members of staff now. That's a big difference to how it was a couple of years ago. We've also got sort of 50 volunteers that still help with us. We have got a lot of vacancies as well, so a bit of a shout out. If you know anyone that would be interested, pop over to our website and have a look and see what we've got going on. We've also got vacancies for volunteers as well, so something to bear in mind as a bit of a sideline. So what do we do? Very, very similar to work to Gareth actually, and we work closely with Alliance, other housing associations. We run the court desk at the North Somerset courts. So if someone that comes to you is in rent arrears, mortgage arrears, and it's got to the stage where the court's involved, you'll see one of my colleagues over there. We work closely with Bristol Water. I have one guy that works for me that solely works on the Bristol Water projects. He is really successful getting people onto cheaper Bristol Water tariffs, social tariffs. They don't have to be, clients don't have to be in debt to Bristol Water. If they're struggling financially, you can come to Citizens Advice and we'll get them on a water tariff, a social tariff. More often than not, that might be paying £1 a month or whatever's affordable for that person. So that's a really quick win in terms of improving someone's income. Not always about income maximisation, it's also about sort of thinking about expenditure as well. We work closely with the First Steps team that some of you may have heard about. It's a partnership with the council. Coming to us if someone had council tax debts, working with First Steps, we can get the debt brought back from bailiffs, which for a lot of our clients is their main concern when they come to us. Often when people come to the food bank, the main concern is actually just feeding and getting that food. Often with clients with them council tax debts, absolutely they want to get the bailiff stopped, and that's something we can do. And then we can work with the client moving forward as to what they can do with that debt and what options they've got. What else do we do? We work closely, we've got a social prescribing team. It's a fairly new team we've got, and they have referrals in from GP surgeries predominantly, and they get people into our service to help them with their debts, but also any other issues they've got where people can help. I think it might be on to the next slide, Emma. So in terms of how you would approach this, I think the best thing I would suggest at this stage is look at our website. So at the bottom, nscab.org.uk. The two main referral pathways in, one is via email. Our email address is on our website. For reference, it's advice@nscab.org.uk. And we also have an advice line phone number. That's on our website as well. And they're the two main easiest ways to get through. We'll also be starting our drop-in service again, hopefully before November at the Sovereign Centre. So that's another good way for people to get in. I think it might go on to the next slide. Perfect. So in terms of the client journey, the client will come to us via email predominantly or via the phone. We do a full analysis of the client situation in terms of their debts. We look at their income, their expenditure, what money they have left over, and then predominantly my team will look at what options people have got with their debts. We could do debt relief orders in-house, so it's a one-stop shop. We can do bankruptcy. We help people from bankruptcy right through to getting their bankruptcy submitted. To be fair, the vast majority of people have heard about debt relief orders. There's very few people in North Somerset that can do those face-to-face. So that is really where people come to us wanting that service, and then we will meet people face-to-face. One of our officers are outreach to take them through that debt relief order process. I won't go into debt relief order too much. It's a sort of baby form of bankruptcy, we sometimes call it. If someone's got debts of under 30,000, we can get the majority of those debts written off. Certain debts don't fall within that, but we can explain that to the client. But it's a really good fresh start for clients. Alongside all the debt work we do income maximisation, and we can refer clients out to some of my colleagues. So we do benefit appeals. So if someone's been turned down for PIP, for example, and we think they've got a good chance of getting that decision overturned, at appeal stage, we'll actually go to court with them to do that, to support them on that journey, and we have great success rates with that. Other income maximisations we do, we work quite closely with the Hope Project in North Somerset, particularly this time of year, actually providing school uniforms to children. We've got good relationships with them. We help people if they want to apply for free school meals. We help people follow that discretionary housing payment application with North Somerset. So we actually do the forms with the clients to help them try and get more money towards their rents or their rent arrears. We've got a family law solicitor working with us as well. She primarily helps people suffering from who have been involved in domestic violence incidents, but she has got sort of a briefing to do family law as well. Let's have a look at the next slide, Emma, see what that one says. Brilliant. So I've covered a few of these points already. Our main thing we do is discuss the debt options with clients. So we will do token offers. We write to the creditors actually making formal offers. Following COVID, actually, although there was a lot of negative in terms of creditors during COVID, a lot of creditors now will accept these £1 a month token offers for a 6-month period. They seem to be a little bit more willing to do that, which is a good thing. We'll do DRAs and bankruptcies, as we've also said. We also can do, you might have heard of breathing space, which is a new formal sort of plan for people to have a 60-day space where creditors aren't allowed to contact people, and we're able to put people into breathing spaces as well, which does give clients a bit of time. And we're finding it particularly helpful where clients have rent arrears, because it can stop that process of eviction, while other sort of solutions are put in place. I think there's one more slide, Emma. Brilliant. So yeah, so just to confirm, if you want to get back in touch, I would suggest you go to our website, and that's going to have all our up-to-date details. Yeah.
Brilliant. Thank you, Tori. Again, really interesting to hear the breadth of support that you offer, and again, really, really vital things that can help people. Especially great to hear about that breathing space, which will be so important for so many people. I'm really enjoying this. I think with all these things, I learn much more when I spend time with people. It's great. Okay, so we've got another slide here, which again is flagging up how you can get access to the leaflet if you don't have it already. And again, Abby, I'm sure you can pop some links in the chat just to make sure that everyone has that available to them. I know that there are hard copy leaflets available in North Somerset libraries, and I'm fairly confident that they will be at other locations around North Somerset. I know that Amy's on the call as well, so I don't know whether you might want to pop in the chat where you can access physical copies of the leaflet as well. I think what we now go on to talk about really, and Gareth mentioned it, and I'm going to hand over to Gareth to help us kind of just consider this, is so we've got the leaflet, we've got a variety of different ways to access the leaflet. How do we have those conversations, and a bit of insight into how we might just be able to hold those conversations well. So Gareth, it's over to you, if that's okay.
Okay, well, I'm quite happy to share the floor with Emma and Tori and Abby. Feel free to jump in, you know, if you think it's relevant, or I'm starting to stutter. But I mean, as a race, as a nation, we're very good at moaning on the whole, whether it be the weather or whatever's going on in the news. But we find it often difficult to have difficult conversations, even with our loved ones and our closest. And money seems to be one of those things that people really don't like talking about. Now, in my experience, it's very difficult for people to often share that they're struggling, and often when they finally do reach out for some help, that's quite a big step for the client, and there's probably been a lot of internal dialogue and stress and anxiety about doing that. So my approach and how we work, probably not dissimilar to the majority of support agencies up and down the country, but we aim to create an environment, a safe space for the client to share. Now, sometimes you'll meet a client and they will give you everything straight away. In my experience, often clients come to us and they'll be looking for help with one or two things, with A, B, and C. But once you've met them 2 or 3 times and they've realised that, you know, you're there not to judge them, just to do what you can to help, to walk that journey alongside them, because what we do is doing with, it's not doing for. Then once the customer feels safe, they will give you, you know, you've had A, B, and C, then you get everything else. And it's about creating that non-judgmental environment that creates a safe space for people to share with you, because often you only get a bit of the story at the front door, so to speak. So we use sort of various approaches. It's about interpersonal skills. It's about listening, open questions, you know, exploring gently and encouraging the client to share with you the breadth and the depth of the things that they're struggling with. And we talk quite a lot within the social prescribing world around what's important to me, and using that as a kind of tool. You know, what's giving you the most stress? What would you like to prioritize and look at first? So some of my team, you know, have had recently some motivational interviewing training. That's a psychological approach for working with people that are perhaps stuck, you know, and need some help just to move them along, you know. And it's very much, I think, about working from a strength-based viewpoint with clients. You know, what can the client do for themselves? What confidence and motivation do you need to build up in them for them to take control of their situation? But for many people, they've exhausted their own options and they do need to reach out for some help. So it's how you frame the conversation. Can we have the next slide, please? So I'm not going to go through each of these, guys, but it is about framing the conversation. It's about picking the right time, letting the client bring it to you, if at all possible. If you have to fish a little bit because you're aware of, you know, this, and often this interconnects with this, so on, you can kind of push the conversation in a certain way. But often it's best to allow the client to bring it to you, and for you not to. I think sometimes as professionals, our minds are racing. We're already thinking of the solution before we fully understood what the problem is. So let the client speak. Does anybody else want to add anything to that?
I think what I might do is stop sharing and then it kind of opens the floor a little bit up. I mean, I completely get that, Gareth, and that's what I fall down all the time, because in my mind you're wanting to solve the problem, or you're kind of thinking about, oh, what about this, this and this? And I think creating that space for that conversation is really important. Does anyone else have anything they want to share? And this is kind of open to the whole group, really, of how you might have used the leaflet or anything around framing those conversations. Tori.
I think it's really good actually with clients. I sometimes think you need to give them a bit of space to think, like Gareth says. So if they picked up this leaflet at, say, a GP practice or a food bank, for example, they might not be in a frame of mind to talk about their debts or their money worries, but taking it home, reading it overnight over a cup of tea, it might just prompt them to then actually go to an agency or an advice agency to actually get that help. So it's definitely a brilliant first step in that whole advice process.